Greetings and salutations, Geo nerds. What's this statue of this amazing famous Australian in downtown Winton got to do with this little tower of talent giving knee surgery with a pneumatic die grinder to a statue of an Aboriginal person on the front of City Hall, and this statue of Major General Sir Thomas William Glasgow, KCB, CMG, call me God, DSOVD. Hang around, we'll find out together. So, if you hadn't guessed, it's about Daphne Mayo, this lady here. Daphne is a great Queenslander, albeit somewhat controversial. She was born in Balmain in Sydney in 1895. Educated up here in Brisbane at St Margaret's Anglican School, and she received a diploma of arts craftsmanship from the Brisbane Central Technical College in 1913. Now, that's quite a thing in 1913. She couldn't vote, by the way, because, she wasn't a man, but she could do all that, which was great. She was obviously extremely talented. She got an opportunity to go to London through an art scholarship in 1919, where she got a job as assistant sculptor, and then later on she was accepted into the school for the Royal Academy, which is a huge thing. And she spent quite some time in London learning her and honing and learning her skills. And then she returned to Brisbane and set up her gallery. And what she is famous for in Brisbane, or most famous for, is the sculpture she did on the front of our City Hall. So let's have a look at that now. So Daphne was commissioned to do the tympanum on the front of the Brisbane City Hall. Here it is here. We'll have a closer look at it in a minute. And it's a controversial piece of work, and it wasn't controversial in its day, but it is now. But you've got to remember, she was a woman of her time. The attitudes are now set in stone, literally. So this was the City Hall site in about the 1920s. You got Albert Street in front of you there. Pause this and have a look at some of those signs. You'll get a good giggle. This is what it was like after they'd poured the foundations. This is in the early 1920s, and the stone was down and the ace concrete was down by the look of that. Here is the foundation stone here, made out of good old Camp Mountain granodiorite. Probably the last stuff was ever mined. Here it is going up. See the sign there? Oregon Pine from Brett & Co. Brett still exists there over on Roddy Road. Amazing stuff, eh? That's how to run a business. And here's the City Hall here, where it's ready for Daphne. You can see the scaffolding's up there for her sculpture, but it is not in place as yet. So, this is 1930, coming up to 1930. Here it is ready to go in her studio in those days, before it went there. It's an amazing piece of art, it just is. And here she is working on it with an offsider with a super duper hat on, with a hammer and a chisel, pair of safety glasses there. We'll colorise it for you. I like the way the AI colorises the statue as well. It's a sandstone, that's fine. All held as sandstone, this stuff. It's gorgeous gear, but it colorises. It got the colour of the sandstone wrong, but such a good job. I'm not quite sure where she's going to put that chisel, but I don't like the look of it. Anyway, here it is. What we're going to do is we'll just zoom back here and we'll take a nice long look over it. And unfortunately, this is where the controversy comes in, with the Aboriginal people cowering on the ground with their spear, and the the Helledan Greek colonialists here conquering all, because, in Daphne's own words, I might add, it's true, as a civilization they just couldn't stand up to ours. Yeah, not very PC nowadays, but remember, it's 100 years ago. And they weren't her only controversial views, shall we say. Well, folks, here's Daphne with a likely crew. This is the Australian Academy of Art founding member. Plutonium Bob in the front row there, of course, or Pig Iron Blob, depending on what generation you're from. This little girl, very well connected. You don't get invited to this unless you know people and you're good at what you do. Here she is with Archbishop Duhigg the builder. And it wasn't probably without detail that a lot of her commissions were on the front of Catholic churches, which Mr. Duhigg was definitely the Gruppenführer of, but she did a good job. It wasn't just placement, obviously. So here's the Women's War Memorial. You can go and see this. It's in Anzac Square. A lovely piece of Helledan sandstone, as was the front of the City Hall, and just a particularly lovely thing. And this is a dedication to women in war. Although I did notice there weren't any women in the actual sculpture. But anyway, it's the thought that counts, I suppose. So this is another piece of her work. It's all stunning stuff. I mean, no one can knock this lady on anything and her work. I love it. She did have masons working for her, though. All these photos of her chipping away at a rock, there were masons doing the heavy lifting, and she did the finishing stuff and the design and whatever. This is in Tattersalls, a club that she wouldn't have been allowed into, actually, because no women in those days. But anyway, they do now. They've seen the light. Another piece of her beautiful work. This is very emotional. This is the prodigal son. So obviously a good Catholic upbringing, and by the look of this, I think she got the meaning of the actual story, because this is a beautiful piece of work. She's there is a lot of her work. I'm cherry picking it. There's work all over Brisbane. This is, of course, our old mate Sir Kindly Call Me God. That she did a beautiful sculpture of. That's on display, of course. You can see where it is there. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Sorry. Not the work, the guy. The jolly swagman. The criminal that stole a sheep and committed suicide so he couldn't be caught by the police. Anyway, this is in Winton, and it's a beautiful piece of work. It really is. So he's not exactly sitting by a billabong. He's sitting by a kiosk, but look at that photo. Haven't been to Winton for many years. This is at the Mount Thompson Crematorium over at Holland Park. This is just a beautiful piece of work. Yeah, it just is. Really is. You can see how she worked up the figures for the City Hall. Good size angles on these guys. This is where she lived eventually. This is over on at Highgate Hill. You see the Highgate Hill Reservoir on the top there. That's still there, by the way. It's still in use. And this is her complex. It's her studio and her cottage and her yard and whatever. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. Bits of it are still there, if you know where to look. But yeah, she lived there for a really, really long time. She was still there in the 1970s. With her studio, still cracking away at the rocks and doing her thing. And if you want to go and look at this, you can. It's on Gladstone Road, 147. That's not going to do you much good. These people don't put numbers on their places. This is what it looks like from the road nowadays. It's just a block of flats, as is many things. But if the walls could tell the things that would have gone on in there with all of the parties and the people she knew and the places and the work that she did, and I think it would have been just amazing. So she moved in here in the 1930s, so she was there for a really long time, and one of the masons that was working on the City Hall with her built her a beautiful Brisbane tuff wall, which is still there, but it's in the street behind it. So you have to go around the back to Chester Street, and there's the tuff retaining wall that was built for her in the 1930s, and it is still there. Now, she lived a long life. She died in 1983, so she got on, did well, and it's her legacy is all over Brisbane, and it's going to be there for hundreds of years. It's been there 100 years now. Here she is working on a sculpture. Not quite sure which one this was. You can just tell this was a very special person. Like the Greek style, the Aboriginal person behind with the kangaroo over his back there. Lovely gear. And did she get recognised in her time? Yes, she did. She became an MBE, a member of the Order of the British Empire. Keep rocking. T-Rock's out.